in South Africa. I welcome those that's watching this discourse locally, nationally, and internationally. And I welcome those that's going to be watching this discourse when it is posted on YouTube and the various groups from around the world subsequently. Our topic for today is the soul, part 2. In discussing the soul, I am using the authorized scriptures of Sanatana Dharma, and that is the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, and the Brahma Sutras. And gleaning information through these scriptures and my own realization, I am going to divulge this knowledge through this session on what the soul really is. And it is common sense that if you want to know details of any product, then the best knowledge attained can be given by the manufacturer himself. So, in relation to the soul, I'm going into the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, and obtain the knowledge that was divulged by Lord Sri Krishna himself to Arjuna. And from there I will go into other scriptures and my own realizations. So at the outset, chapter 2, verse 17. Last week I did verse 13 and 14. Okay, I'm going to start with verse 16, chapter 2. The unreal can never come into being, the real never ceases to be. Full stop. The conclusion about these two is seen by the seers of the truth. So we're saying that the unreal can never come into being. What does this mean? The unreal can never come into being. So if you take this body on its own, it cannot be born. This body can take no birth on its own. Only when it is infused with the soul, then this body can come into being. Then this body becomes active. The living principle permeates this body, and that living principle is the soul. And when that living principle leaves this body, then this body ceases to be. So we are saying that the unreal, and we personifying it with this body for the context of this discourse, cannot exist, has no real existence unless it is housing a soul. This body has no real existence unless it is housing a soul. Then we need to understand this practically. If we amputate our hand or our leg, does the hand continue to exist? Does the leg continue to exist? Why? Because no longer has contact with the soul. So an amputated hand cannot live outside the connection of a soul. It will perish and it will be absorbed in the four elements. When I say it will perish and be absorbed in the four elements, or five elements, what are the five elements? Space, air, fire, water, and earth. So if we dismember an arm, that arm that has been dismembered will be absorbed into its subtle form of the five elements. So when that arm disappears fully, the space that it took, it returns to space. Yes? Right now this arm has taken space. When this arm is dissolved, when there's nothing there, then it returns the space that it took to the element space. There will be air in this arm, dismembered arm, yes? That air will go back to air. There will be heat in this arm when it is originally connected to the body, which we call fire, element fire. That heat will be returned to the source, heat. There will be liquid in this arm which will eventually turn into water, and that liquid will be absorbed into the liquid, the source. And then there will be a combination of bone and the flesh, which will be eventually absorbed in the element, the earth. So it means our body has no existence because we dismembered a part of a body in which the same soul is residing, yes? So when the soul leaves this entire body, the same principle occurs. The body stops living. The body stops living because the soul disconnects from the entire body. As in the previous example, the body disconnected itself from the soul. Are you understanding? So this is what's being said by Lord Shri Krishna. This is God explaining. The Supreme Lord, your Creator, is explaining what the soul actually is. So when the soul leaves this body will perish. Anything that perishes, is it real or unreal? Because it has a state and it doesn't have a state. It has a state and it doesn't have a state. Anything that is not permanent is unreal in its existence because it only exists in a specified time. Only exists for a specified time. Eventually time consumes the existence of the imperishable, does it? But can time consumes the perishable, but time cannot touch the imperishable. And the Supreme Lord is stating in this verse that the soul cannot be touched by time or anything as it is imperishable. That is the nature of the soul, and that is the nature of who you really are. So I just want to briefly go back a bit into last week's discourse to synthesize this part and bring it into context. Last week we said that this body has an intermittent state. He said this body has an intermittent state. And we stated that atoms continuously enter and leave this body. We stated that this body goes through many phases. Starts with the birth of a child. In the minute this body is formed, it starts changing. The minute this body is formed, it starts changing. The body of a child does not have the same atoms as the body of the youth. And the body of the youth does not have the same atoms as the body of a person in old age. And science has revealed that even the bones, the atoms in the bones. So I'm not propping my argument with science. I'm just saying that today science is corroborating what the Bhagavad Gita has stated all along. So when the body continues to change, and I gave two examples. I said a candle. When you see the flame of a candle, you think it is one flame. But the flame of a candle is not one flame. The flame of a candle is intermittent. What do I mean when I say it is intermittent? Faster than your eye can see, there's a burst of flame, and then the next burst of flame, and then the next burst of flame, and then the next burst of flame. This gross eye just see one flame, but there's millions of flames in a candle because each one that ignites gets extinguished, and another one ignites and gets extinguished, and another flame ignites and gets extinguished, and we just see a continuity of one flame. Similarly, I also explained that when you open a tap, you see one body of water flowing out of the mouth of the tap. But the first atom that flowed from the mouth of the tap reaches the ground and disappears. Yes? Logical? The first particle of water that came out of the mouth of the tap, in a millisecond before the eye can cognize it, it falls onto the ground and it disappears. But when you watching the tap open, you are watching one body of water. And similarly, when you're watching this body is changing every millisecond. Atoms are entering, atoms are leaving. Atoms are entering, atoms are leaving. But you think that you are owning this one body from the time you was born until the time you leave this body. You're under the impression that you are this one body. So the soul transfers the only remaining characteristic in this body of change is the causal body. And the causal body is beginningless. It is beginningless. It means it had no start. But it can have an end. It can have an end. What causes? What is the cause? That is why it's called a causal body. What is the cause of this body? Sorry? Karmas. Our good and bad actions is the cause of this body. So that is our software that covers the soul. The software covering the soul is called the causal body. It's there since time immemorial. The causal body is housing the soul in its subtle form since time immemorial. Together with the causal body, the subtle body was formed. Together with the causal body, the subtle body was formed, and the subtle body comprises of the intelligence, the mind, and the ego. The subtle body comprises of the intelligence, mind, and ego. The ego is the identification of the body that you would take. Ego is the identification of the body you will take, and therefore there is no such thing as false ego. I hear people saying false ego. Ego in its reality means your identity. You can't have a false identity. When they say false ego, they mean that you are falsely identifying yourself as the body. But there can be no such thing as false ego, because ego is part and parcel of your subtle body. So your causal body which is your karma, together with the ego, the intelligence, and the mind forms the subtle body. Then, covering your subtle body is this gross body. When this gross body, when you leave this gross body, your soul leaves this body, followed by the subtle causal body and the subtle, encased in the causal body and the subtle body, and it takes on the next body. I want you to understand this. This is why I'm taking my time. You have the same causal body until you are liberated. You have the same mind until you are liberated. You have the same intelligence until you are liberated. You have the same subtle body until you are liberated. You have the same pranic body until you are liberated. All these are gross bodies. All these are subtle bodies with material elements. Your causal body is a subtle body. Subtle means the eye cannot see. It is atomic in size. Your soul is atomic in size. When we say atomic in size, what do we mean? How small? Cannot be seen with the naked eye. But there are gurus, there are highly evolved spiritual masters who at the point of death sees the light emanating from a gross body. They see a light emanating from the gross body, but if you see the light, you cannot see its source, because the source is so small. it takes about 10 million hydrogen atoms to fill one normal atom. So you can understand the size of an atom. And it is stated in the Vedas that if you take the tip of your hair and divide it into 10,000 parts, then you take one part of the divided 10,000 parts and you divide it into 10,000 parts. Then if you take one of that part, that is the size of the soul. 1/10,000, the size of the tip of your hair. That is the size of the soul. That soul takes its seat in the heart. And it animates the entire body through its consciousness. The consciousness of the soul is infinite. Consciousness of the soul is infinite if you remove the causal body of the soul. If you remove the causal body of the soul can reach every corner of this universe. The soul can reach every corner of the universe if you remove the causal body of the soul. The causal body of the soul, which is your accumulated karma, contracts the size of your consciousness according to the size of your body. The consciousness of the elephant compared to the consciousness of an ant is all due to your karma, and similarly, if you remove karma, then consciousness is infinite, is everywhere, but due to the causal body and the restrictions of the causal body, our consciousness is restricted to the body that we are living. This soul evolves. When you are very, very tired, what you want to do? You want to? When you sleep and get up, how do you feel? Refreshed. What is the refreshment of the soul? Okay, there are 4 states of existence. There are 4 states of existence. Right now, at this point in time, we are in the awake state. Yes? Then when we go to bed tonight, we will go into dream state. And recently, Vasan's dream state is very, very intense. Right? You can ask Vasan secretly what he is dreaming, but it's very, very intense. When he gets up in the morning and he remembers parts of his dreams. Vasan? Alright? Who remembered the dream? Who witnessed the dream? Who is witnessing this awake state? Sometime when Vasan works till 9, 10, he just sleeps. Next morning, alarm on, he remembers nothing, but he feels very refreshed because he had a dreamless sleep. When he had the dreamless sleep, when he had no memory, his soul actually entered the causal body. His soul actually entered the causal body, and in the causal body there is no memory. There is, but who witnessed that there was no dream? The soul. Then the fourth state is the Turiya state, or the state of enlightenment, in which Vasan is trying to juggle his business, his wife, and God, all three. Vasan is juggling, and you can have realization, Vasan, good news, by still having your business and still having your wife. God realization, you can realize God through all. Because you can see your Guru as a wife, your Guru is working, and he is God realized. We're living in the material world, we're living in the 21st century. If you take your wife to the Himalayas, somewhere deep in the mountains, you're only going to make her suffer. Alright? So you have to live where you're living. You have to put heaters, you have to buy nice warm winter clothes. It would be very stupid to jump on a donkey and buy a donkey and go to work in a donkey. And put your air cons on a donkey from here to Kimberley. Alright? I don't know when that will. So you have to use whatever technology God has. Like I was telling Mataji today, I am a guru of the 21st century. Vasan, how many viewers on your TikTok? Cannot see, you know where to find it.
It is not here.
Okay. So instead of bringing all of them here, I am reaching out to the viewers wherever they are. My job is to give them knowledge. So I'm using technology. In those days, everyone had to go to a guru, sit under a tree, and get a discourse. Then it evolved into halls. Now it evolved into technology. So I am told that we have between 500 and 700 viewers every Sunday on TikTok. So I am reaching out to them where they are using technology. They're getting the same information that you are seated here in the hall and you are getting, because I'm using technology. Similarly, there is a perception that to be spiritual, you have to wear orange robe. Well, I'm keeping the beard just to put apart. But I can't shave if I want. I can shave if I want. There's many modern shaving technology now. You know, in a few seconds I can be clean shaven. So I'm keeping it to fit in the persona, but I've kicked out a whole lot of myths when I became a guru. So, what do you know of public figures? See, if I invite a public figure here, a famous personality, how do personalities get famous? If I invite a very famous person here, what time will he arrive? What time will he leave? Before time. A personality will come in just on time or just after time, will stick around, and when you invited this personality, what they'll tell you, I can only pop in for a little time because I have other engagements. Other engagements is a lie. To retain the value of the personality, that personality cannot come here, sit with you, mix and mingle with you, laugh with you, joke with you, because that personality will lose its value. Do you understand? And gurus have been doing this for a very, very long time, have they not? I booted this out. I booted it out. I sit with people no matter how many hours in any type of dressing, whether I'm dressed in my tracksuit, if I don't make special appointments with devotees, then run in the bathroom, dress like this, and let a devotee come through, and the devotee see me for 10-15 minutes, and I tell them I have pressing appointments and other devotees. I give them all that I can. I never let a devotee go unless I've given the devotee everything that I can. But the downside to that is many devotees, when you step down to many levels and your interactions with the devotees, they lose your value as a guru. And we've all noticed that. I think the only unchanging devotee that I had from the first day that I met up until today is Vasan, Dana, Shanti. They've seen me in all my modes, but the value of the Guru is still maintained in them. You understand? Vasan, how many years you with me?
8 years.
Vasan is 8 years. He started this Facebook Live, now he's gone on TikTok Live. He was the first to hold a camera. And I showed him many, many things through the camera that he saw. He saw the reality behind the reality. I've shown Vasan everything. There's nothing more for Vasan to see. But his value of the Guru is the same. So my reason for my birth is to give you knowledge, not for you to value me in any specific way. I'm not a politician, I'm not a rock and roll star, I'm not a film star. I won't lose any of my value. I'm the soul. The value that they are protecting belongs to the body. Do you understand? So if I say I'm the soul and I'm teaching you the uniqueness of the soul, I'm teaching you all the attributes of the soul, then I have to live as a soul and give this regard to this body. I don't care what you think of me. I don't care how familiar you get with me. Do you understand? You know, they say familiarity breeds contempt. I don't care about all these things because I am not this body. I am the soul, which is 1,000,000 times more superior than this body. So whatever perception you have of this body have no effect on me. If it has an effect on me, then I'm teaching you wrong. I'm an acharya. I must teach through example. I must live it, then I must teach it. You understand? So coming back to the soul, which is very, very important, this is where the world has gone awry. It's gone AWRY, it's gone wrong. This is where the guru system is gone wrong. This is where the pastors, the Maulanas, the rabbis, all these people who put value to their body and their title. Remember, there is no title to the soul. I'm not a guru soul, I'm a soul. The guru title is to this body. Do you understand? All titles only belong to this body. The soul has no title at all. It is just an animating principle when it is in the body. So I want to go back. So when you are in the awake state, the soul is awake. When you are in the dream state, the soul is awake. When you are in the dreamless state, the soul is awake. When you are in the enlightened state, the soul is awake. Yes? Then I'm asking you, when does the soul refresh itself? At death, in between the two bodies. In between the two bodies is where you rest. Where the soul rest and refreshes. But you don't want both. Person come back. He's going to Kimberley next week. But that's where the greatest refresher of the real you take place. That the person don't want to be born again. But you start all over from baby person. Napkin stage. These two things we don't want to hear of. If I'm telling you of these two entities, if you ask me, Guru, when will I find real peace? I'll say, kill yourself until you are born again. In between the two periods, you, the soul, will be absolutely peaceful because you'll forget. The minute the soul leaves this body, it is not attached to any pain, suffering or memory of this body. Hear me again. As soon as the soul departs from this body, it disconnects its memory. And where does pain and suffering exist? Where? In your mind. All pain and suffering exist in your mind. When your mind leaves this body, what happens to the memory that it had with this body in terms of pain and suffering? It changes. So if there's no pain and no suffering, then what state is that emotion? Peaceful and bliss. Yet you're in the material, you're still immersed in the material universe, but from the point of leaving the material body and to the point of entering another material body, at that time the soul is peaceful and getting refreshed. Yes? Makes sense? Logical? So, I think verse 16 that I've explained, I just explained a few verses. I wanted to read this one. So I'm going to read verses in context with the discourses I'm giving and not in chronicle order of the verses. Alright? How Lord Shri Krishna, how he spoke these verses, I may not give it in the same order, but I'm going to find relevant verses to give it in the context of the discourse. Verse 23. Weapons do not cleave it. Fire does not burn it. Waters do not wet it. The wind does not dry it. Weapons would mean earth. All weapons are made with earth. Metal comes from earth. It is part of earth. So weapons cannot cleave it. What does cleave it mean? Weapons cannot destroy the soul. Air cannot suffocate the soul. Fire cannot burn the the soul. How is that possible? We need a scientific answer. Our mind, our material mind, must be able to understand what is. So let's look at the elements. The subtlest, the most subtle element is space. Yes? Because you cannot see it. This gross eyes cannot see space. Then from space is born air. Air is born from space. And from the collision of air atoms, we have fire. And from fire, we have water, which is so, and from water we have earth. You can see very, very subtle, then subtle, then gross, and then gross. Water is gross, fire is subtler than water, and from gross water you get earth. So each element combined with the next element give you the forthcoming. So earth will have a combination of the other four elements. Within earth you'll have the other four elements. Within water you'll have the other three elements. Within air you'll have the two elements, and space is on its own. It's a combination of these elements that gives birth to the next element. Are you understanding? So these elements either combine in all its forms, which is earth. Earth is a combination of space, air, fire, and water gives you earth. All of that combined cannot harm the soul in any way. Why? Well, let's look at it in another way. Space pervades air, it pervades fire, it pervades water, and it pervades earth. And similarly, air pervades fire, and fire pervades water, and water pervades earth. You understand it? Pervasion means that these elements can permeate each other. Can permeate each other, and it can also destroy each other. Yes? So if we take a house built with earth, can fire destroy it? Can earth destroy it? Can wind destroy it? It can be destroyed. All these gross elements can be destroyed by each other, yes? The only reason it can destroy each other is the atoms from these elements can permeate the atoms from of the other elements. Are you understanding? For total destruction, there must be a permeation of the atoms from one element to the. Now the soul is so subtle. What is the size of the soul? 1/10,000 the size of the tip of your hair, that nothing can penetrate it. No element can pervade the soul, but the soul can pervade all the elements. Is there proof that the soul can pervade all the elements? What is your body made up of? All the elements. I told you, your causal body, your ego, your intelligence, and your mind, and the pranic body. So we have 5 bodies. Let me clarify this. We have 5 bodies. The first body that you know is the gross body. The gross body is fully permeated by the pranic body or the ego. The gross body is fully permeated by the pranic body. That's what gives this body shape. Then behind this body is the mental body or the mind. The mind fully permeates the pranic body and the gross body. Then behind the mind is the intelligence. The intelligence body fully permeates the preceding bodies, and behind the intelligence body is the ego body or the causal body, and that permeates all the other bodies. So we have 5 bodies, but all are permeated by each other. And the soul permeates all 5 bodies through the consciousness, which is giving the life principle to it. But these other 4 bodies, or these 5 bodies, are all material bodies, either gross or subtle. So if the soul can permeate all these bodies, can these bodies permeate the soul? Are you understanding? There's only 5 elements in this universe. There are only 5 elements in this universe: space, air, fire, water, and earth. We can see as an example in our own body, in our own existence, that the soul permeates all these elements, which means these elements cannot permeate the soul. Permeation is not vice versa with the soul and the elements. Do you understand? Because they cannot permeate the soul, they cannot harm the soul in any way. So if you take a soul and drop it in the sea, it won't get drowned. Because for you to get drowned, the water have to permeate you for you to get drowned. If you take the soul and throw it into fire, it cannot get burnt because the fire molecule cannot permeate the soul because it is grosser than the soul. Do you understand? And this is the reason why Lord Sri Krishna is saying that none of these elements that's around can destruct the soul. I want to stop there. Are there any questions? Asim, you got any questions? No questions. Okay, so we're going to continue. I'm going to use the various scriptures, and I think we're going to have a beautiful journey going ahead through these series of discourses, understanding, especially when you go into depression. When you go into depression, when you get sick, when you feel things are not working my way, then these discourses will give you an answer and also give you energy to live for another day. If you know that you are not this body, if you know you are the soul, which is the living principle of this body, which cannot get hurt by weapons, cannot harm you, water cannot harm you, fire cannot harm you, air cannot harm you. These are all elements that's found within space. Yes? All these elements are found within space. Then why should you be depressed? Why should you be depressed? Because depression comes from the mind. The mind gives you emotions, and depression comes from the mind. If you are not the mind, why should you be depressed? you are not the mind. And I want to conclude by saying that the soul is a part of the Supreme Lord. Like the tire is a part of the car. It's not the car. The car is the car. The rim and tire is the rim and tire, but it is a part of the substance called the car. The entire substance is called the car. The rim and tire is part of that substance, but that substance is not, the car is not the rim and tire. Do you understand? But the rim and tire is part of the car. If you can understand God like this, and if you can understand that you are part of that great substance eternally, all the time, then whatever suffering, whatever pain, whatever illness you got, that Supreme Master knows it all because you are part. If you're a tire, rim and tire of a car, and when you get punctured, does the car know that, has the car information that the tire is punctured? Yes, because it also inhibits the functioning car. So similarly, when you are not right and you are part of the bigger picture knows of your existence. It knows of whatever you're going, because whatever troubles you will trouble the bigger picture, because you are a part and parcel of it. All of you understand? So there are times that we need to deal with Narayan. It wasn't full of cake. As soon as I said that, the phone stopped. Ringing. Just stop all the recordings and all this work.